Warning: if you are easily offended or horrified by humor concerning the coronavirus or other subjects, tune out now. The hosts believe the best way to counteract fear is through humor, so beware or be square. Hello, and welcome to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers' 5th Halloween show on Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. I am one of your hosts, Peter Stockwell. We plan to have another ghoulish fun time today. Oh, I think I hear the other host, Mark Miller, approaching.
Hey, I thought there was a mask mandate in some indoor facilities like here.
Yes, but that doesn't look like a medical mask to me.
You know,
More like a Kraken mask.
True. I picked it up at a local party supply store along with this.
Ugh.
I figured it was time for a party. After all, they let all those people in Seahawk games running around with no masks, not to mention some big city mayors rocking and rolling in crowded nightclubs and without masks.
Well, we are social distancing. We wash our hands. Well, and I am undead, so there is no worry for me.
You might be right. I did send some people screaming out of the credit union when I walked in with that mask on. Then you and I can go to a restaurant afterwards and share a nice, juicy, bloody steak with 4 other non-related people.
You know the word steak, and I don't fit. But bloody. Now that idea I can sink my teeth into.
Yes, and we want to tell our viewing public this year that due to some restrictions, last-minute restrictions, we once again had to find an off-site to do our little Halloween show rather than at the VCAT studios. So we're over here infecting Peter's church here out in Silverdale.
That's all right. I think it'll be all right. Well, we do have this show to do with some local authors and creatives providing some horrific content for the VCAT audience.
I brought this knife along because my neighbor's cat keeps trying to use my backyard as a litter box. And I think you've got a friend here that might be able to help me with that problem with either the cat or the neighbor.
Oh, yeah. Bones.
Mind if I borrow him?
Yeah, let's borrow him. Scare the cats.
Yeah, eat the cats. In this time of worldwide fear and violence, what better way to deal with fear than with horror? And humor, of course. Our first bit of entertainment is from J.W. Capek, one of our authors. She has some scary takes on horrific situations, soon to be included in a collection of short stories published by Blue Forge Press. So enjoy, then wash your hands.
Yes, please do.
Grandma and the Monitor Monster by J.W. Capek, October 31st, 2021. The warm kitchen smelled of cinnamon nutmeg with an undertone of hot chocolate. Grandma and Abby were excitedly preparing treats for Halloween. Grandma, why are we making goodies? The stores have lots and lots of candy, Abby asked with her mouth garnished with a chocolate mustache. Oh, Abby, my dear, I just wanted you to know the way Halloween was celebrated when I was a little girl like you. Was there Halloween when you were little? Abby asked innocently. Grandma grinned and remembered. She pushed her glasses to straighten them and tenderly touched Abby's curls. Oh, yes, but it was different. People would prepare all the treats at home. They would drop them into the paper bags the children carried as they went up to the doors and yelled, "Trick or treat!" When we got home from treating the neighborhood, we would pour out treasures to find popcorn balls, taffy apples, fudge, cookies, and fruit. Sometimes there was even a full-sized nickel candy bar. A nickel? Abby looked confused. Yes, when I was your age, there weren't any snack bar size. Of course, there was always candy corn found in the bottom of your sack. She smiled at the pleasant memory. But, Grandma, what happened? Again, little Abby's face was wrinkled. Oh, customs change, celebrations change over time, but fun remains. So now, on Halloween, people only give out prepackaged treats, sealed and FDA approved. She reached out to tickle Abby. We want to keep you safe. Can we carve a pumpkin, Grandma? Oh, no, not now. Your daddy will want to do that at home tonight. Let's just make cookies for fun for the family, and you can take them home. Grandma ushered Abby next to the kitchen where it met the dining room, and there was a computer station on a desk in a nook. Grandma turned a dining room chair to the desk and cuddled Abby on her lap. Now let's find a perfect recipe on the internet. She inserted the search words Halloween, cookies, recipes, and pages flashed by with holiday sales, pumpkin collections, buy, buy, buy. Getting to a promised page of recipes on the screen, it was blanked by a pop-up ad for bowel cleansers. Recipe after recipe was twisted into a loop with ads. Finally, one recipe from an amateur posting was clear, but before Grandma could print it, a horrible jack-o'-lantern filled the screen. It was carved like a zombie with seeds and entrails being vomited from its mouth. Good grief, Grandma exclaimed as she saw the look of horror on Abby's face. That's enough of that trash. She quickly returned to her homepage, and there on the screen was the same monstrosity. Even on a cooking site, the evil pumpkin broke in with a terrible curse. "You can't get away from me. I will get you." Disgusted, Grandma closed the web connection and went to the safety of her email. There was an email from the demon pumpkin at a site with lots of X's in it. "You can't delete me," flashed across the screen as she desperately clicked her mouse on power shutdown. Across the screen was a warning in horror script. "Do not turn off your computer." "Don't tell me what to do, you evil-eyed, grotesque orange monster of pulp," Grandma exclaimed as she saw the look of terror on Abby's face. "That's enough of that garbage," Grandma said quickly to regain her composure and comfort the child. Holding Abby close, she cooed, "Oh, that was just a silly pumpkin for Halloween. I shouldn't have yelled." She quickly returned to her homepage, and there on the screen was the monstrosity, larger than ever. Without hesitating, she flipped off the power strip. comforted the little girl, hugging her. "Those ads on the computer are getting really ugly. We'll just look at my old cookbooks." She hurriedly distracted the child toward the kitchen bookshelf and pulled down an old volume. A quick glance at the index, a page for cooking, and Grandma opened the book, only to scream and throw it down. There on the page, looking up at her, was that grotesque pumpkin, its pulpy eyes reaching out towards her, its hollow spears where eyes should be. Grandma was trembling as much as Abby now. She forced a laugh. Oh, how funny. I fooled you with this Halloween joke. Wait until you tell your daddy how we scared ourselves. As she continued to laugh nervously and hold Abby, she repeated, "Just a Halloween joke, a joke. So now it's time for some popcorn." Ushering them both into the kitchen away from the computer, her voice was strained as she repeated, "A joke, that's what it was." By the time Daddy came to collect Abby, Grandma had convinced herself it had been a joke after all. After her son and Abby left, Grandma was eating alone in the dining room, but kept eyeing the computer. She tapped her fingers and moved the pasta on her plate, drawing circles with her fork. Curiosity pulled at her until she reached to the nook and booted up the computer again. There it was, shocked. Her home page was the ghastly evil pumpkin, and screeches vibrated out of the speakers. The pumpkin cursed vile words. Grandma returned the curses and violently threw her dinner at the monitor. The plate crashed, and food dripped down the pumpkin face. A snarly tongue reached out of the hideous mouth to lick the dribbling sauce. Good. I want more." The tendrils of orange sinews and green vines reached out of the monitor screen as Grandma shrieked in fear. The next night was Halloween, and Daddy brought Abby to trick-or-treat. Dressed in a pink princess dress with sparkles and a wand, she couldn't wait for Grandma to see her. Grandma's doorbell was not answered. Neither was Daddy's knock. The house was dark, very dark. Slowly, Daddy opened the door and walked in. "Mom, it's me. I brought Abby so you could see how pretty she is." "Mother?" He motioned for Abby to stay right by the door and walked cautiously into the dark house. No one was in the living room. He started through the dining room, but stopped immediately. Frenzied light was shooting from the large monitor in the computer nook. Glare and moving colors threw beams and shadows all over the room. The only view on the screen was his mother, Grandma. Her face was gnarled by terror. Her bloodied hands pounded the glass from inside the screen as she wailed in agony. Your computer wishes you a happy Halloween.
Well, that should wake up our audience, at least those with no stakes in their hearts.
Next, we have a writer, Diane Gardner, and her delightful tales about a blood-sucking cousin of yours named, I think his last name was Peetlebody?
Peetlebody, yes. He isn't a lawyer, is he?
I don't know. I'll have to listen to Diane's story.
An Unconventional Mr. Peetlebody by D. L. Gardner. Narrated by Brad Wills. He froze when he saw the body inside. That's not him. The corpse's face was powdered with too much makeup. The pits that had once marred Rockford's skin were now filled with foundation. His thick black hair lay starched and plastered in waves against his swollen temple. Worse, his mouth was sewn shut. Dead as dead, he looked human, not at all like a vampire. His mother's lips trembled under the veil, and her gloved fingers fidgeted nervously before she linked arms with Raymond. She drew him away from the casket and spoke slowly, as if telling a prologue to a ghost story. "They changed him." She looked over her shoulder, then quickly hustled Raymond to the front pew. "Sit down." "Who did?" "Cousins. They're all in cahoots. They hired the mortician to change him. We'll talk later." As soon as they sat in the front row pew, 4 photographers hurried down the aisle. 2 were young men a little older than Raymond, one in a pinstripe suit, his hair cut in a flat top which did nothing more for his appearance than to show off his enormous ears. When the photographers finally found their way back down the aisle, cameras strapped to their backs and notepads tucked away into leather briefcases and slung over their shoulders, she whispered, "Let them report your father's death from one end of the country to the next." Her lips puckered. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at her son. "The plan was to leave those hard finds intact. The world should know what he was, not just speculate. Your cousin sabotaged me." "You hired them?" Raymond asked. "Plan didn't work out well," she grumbled. "Mom, the world thinks vampires dissipate when they die," Raymond said quietly, whispering into her ear. "No one's going to believe those stories." "They would have." He glanced over his shoulder at the reporters, hesitant to agree with his mother's agenda. Ginger Peedlebody wanted revenge and satisfaction for the years she suffered as a vampire's wife, hoarded away in the bayou by her madman husband. If his father's true species were exposed, the entire room of hoodlums would be incriminated. So would Raymond. If that happened, any chance to have a normal life would be utterly ruined. That is, if there were a chance for him to have a normal life. "How could you?" he asked.
Well, now I'd like to introduce my friend and fellow author, David Martin. He will provide some of his own brand of horror.
Hi, my name is Dave Martin, and the story is The Witch of Endor, and it can be found in Volume 3 of Unnerving, 12 stories plus 1, put out by Blue Forge Press. A low hiss filled her ear. She tried shaking her head and even clearing it with the tip of her little finger, but the soft hiss continued. "Where are we going, Father?" the barefoot girl asked as she followed along the rocky path up the hill of Moria. The Jezreel Valley opened below them as a flat plain between the low hill of Moria and its towering brother to the north, Mount Tabor. "If you are thirsty, Karen, we can stop. Drink some water and rest. It's another hour, daughter. I want you to be rested. Look, over there. That is our village, Endor. Look closely. Remember where it is." Karen looked down on her home and out towards Mount Tabor. "Father, I can see Mount Tabor and beyond. Mountains even greater. And in that direction, I can see a great sea. What lies behind the mountain, Father? Have you been beyond Mount Tabor? Have you been to the great sea?" Micah slowly turned and absorbed the view. "I have not been beyond the mountain, but my people come from the end of the great sea. Our patriarch Issachar, son of Jacob, called Israel, was given this land." "Given?" He reconsidered the word. "We had to fight the Canaanites to take it, and fight to keep it. But your mother, her people are of Canaan, from Hazor, beyond Mount Tabor." "You and Mama were enemies, Papa? Did you love Mama?" "Come along, Karam. The sun is getting high in the sky. Soon it will be hot. You will burn your feet." The two started back up the mountain. Karam did her best to ignore the growing hissing in her ears. "I can't wait to tell my brothers. I am sure they have never seen such a sight. Why did they not come, Papa?" "They have work to do." "You told them to feed the orphan lamb, the one no you would accept. It's such a sweet little lamb. You told them, Papa." "They will care for the lamb, and you will do as you're told when you meet the priest. Do not pester him with questions. Do you understand?" "I can ask you questions, Papa." "Of course, but not the priest. He is not a patient man." Micah and Karam continued up. They entered into a thicket of terebinth trees. Karam asked, "Why are there trees here but not below us? And what are these tall poles?" "The others have been cut down. These are holy trees. They surround the poles of Asherah, the mother goddess." "We're almost there." The hissing grew louder, and as Karam passed an Asherah pole, it seemed to whisper to her softly, "Karam, Karam." Coming out of the woods, Micah led Karam into a small compound, somewhat like a village. They walked past long dwellings, a well, and a kitchen. In the center was a tall stone building with an imposing golden statue of a bull guarding the entrance. Behind the bull was an altar with a blazing fire atop it. For once, Micah did not wait for Karam's question. He saw the amazement in her wide eyes. "That is Baal, Lord of the heavens. This is his temple. Come, his priest is inside." It was dark inside the temple. Out of the bright lights, it took some time for their eyes to adjust. Even with lamps and sconce torches lit, it was hard to see the walls and the ceiling through the hazy smoke that floated in the air. And the smell, like burning wet grass, but sweeter, filled their nostrils. A hand grasped Micah's shoulder. "You have brought her to the priest? This way." A man in a white tunic with a golden bowl embraced on the front led Micah into the smoke. The voice grew louder. "Karam." "Why is there so much smoke, Papa? It's hard to see, and it smells. Has something caught fire?" Uneasy with the smoke and the smell, she sought to assure herself as she added, "The man does not seem alarmed." "It is incense. It's for Baal. It cleanses everything in the temple, and it is pleasing to him. You will soon find that it pleases you as well." They were led to a man in white robes with a golden helmet standing in the center of the room, swinging his censer and chanting. They waited. The man made a complete circle, swinging his censer high into the air and chanting. When he finally stopped, he handed the censer to a robed man who brought them into the room. "Who brings this woman to Baal?" "Karam." "I am her father. That is, she is the daughter of my dead wife. My wife was devoted to Baal, Asherah, and the gods of Canaan. This, her daughter, was born to her after one of your many festivals. I call her Karam, vineyard, for she was fathered in a vineyard or under an Asherah pole. My wife played the harlot, so let her daughter live here as a temple prostitute. She is of no use to me." The priest looked at Karam and spoke to the man. "She is young, and your words show contempt for the gods. I am a son of Israel. Baal is a god of Canaan. We are commanded to have no dealings with Canaanites. My wife beguiled me, and I married her, but I worship no god. I will take the price for the girl and be gone. She is of age." The voice teased, "Karam." Karam cried out, "Papa! What are you saying, Papa? Please." The priest turned to Karam and said, "Remove your robe." Karam stood dumbfounded, her eyes wide and her jaw agape. She muffled a sob but dutifully opened her robe and dropped it to the floor. The priest took one look and turned to the man. "No man would have her. The mark on her chest, like a serpent crawling down to her stomach. She could please no man. Her coupling would not entice Asherah. I will give you no money. Take her to the priest of Moloch. Perhaps they will buy her to pass through the fire." Micah stared at the mark. He remembered a birthmark, but when did it grow so large? He turned to the priest. "I have watched your festivals. After much wine and your sacred food, both men and women, in their frenzy, they show no regard for who pleases them." Karam picked up her robe and covered herself, as her father argued. Karam's head fell back, and her eyes opened wide. She began to chant words her father had never heard. The priest listened as Karam chanted louder, and she began to dance. Her body writhed rhythmically, almost like the desert cobra, moving and stalking its victim. First her chin, then her shoulders, now her chest, her small body thrusting. The undulating serpentine motion moved lower to her hips and then her knees. All the while, she chanted, Karam lifted her arms and spun in a circle, her head now bobbing, her back bent, her knees lifting. She danced in place, chanting louder and louder, till at last she fell in a heap at the feet of the priest. Her father and the priest stared in amazement at what they had seen. Then slowly Karam lifted her head and rose to her knees. She clutched her robe in front of her as she stood. "Where is she?" Karam asked. "Where did she go?" "I will go with her." The priest asked, "She? You had a vision. What did you see?" "Mother. She was here. She came out of the smoke and spoke to me. She told me I am her voice and she is my strength." Her father said, "Your mother is dead and buried. Come with me, Karam. I will sell you to the priests of Moloch." "You will not sell me to Moloch. I am free of you. Mother has freed me. You are less than a pig to her, and now to me. I am free." The priest asked, "Tell me what you have seen. Your mother, you say. Was she alone? What else did you see and hear?" "My mother came to me from others. She was wearing rings around her neck, her wrists, and her ankles. Beads hung from her hair, and her eyes were circled in black. She wore only a golden belt and the image of Asher on a necklace. There was laughing and singing. Others were coupling like rams and ewes in the field. When she came to me, she said, 'Sweet daughter Karam, you have the gift, power to enter and the power to leave. Submit to no man, least of all the pig who sells you. You will be my voice from Sheol. Tell the priests of Baal, you have the gift.'" The priest scowled at Micah. "Leave her with us. She is holy to our gods. Go." Micah said, "The price for a temple prostitute is 30 shekels. The priest replied, "You have said she is not your daughter. She will stay with us. Go." "I fed her and clothed her for 13 years. I deserve something. Pay me the price." "Clothe her? She does not even wear sandals. Take what I give and be gone." The priest reached into his pouch and retrieved a silver coin. "She is not to be a temple prostitute. She is a seer. Take this and leave." Micah took the coin, turned, and disappeared into the smoke, not taking a last look at the young woman he raised. Papa, if you leave me, you are dead to me. What is to become of me?" The smoke around her began to spin. "Karam, Karam, Karam. You are my voice, my ears, my eyes to the living. Grow strong, Karam. Grow strong."
Next, I'd like to do a short little reading from one of my books. It's a book that I published a while back through Blue Flames Press called Jade Eyes. It's a thriller with a little bit of a horrific twist in it. John Wayne retrieved Kim's pistols that Samu had taken from her. He handed the 6 Sauer to Mr. Yoshida as he spoke. "Here, a .40 caliber and a small Glock 26 for your associate." Mr. Yoshida spoke Japanese to a younger associate, who produced a short ninja-style sword from under his suit jacket. "He prefers cold steel." "Suit yourself," the boss said. "Come on, we must deal quickly with whoever is attacking us." "Maybe a rival gang, John?" Yoshida asked. "I only heard one weapon," he replied to his fellow criminal. "So I don't know. Hurry." All the criminal elements moved across the long, hidden basement towards the far end and the concealed stairway leading upstairs. In the lighted area, Kim, AJ, and Jade remained, with Samu and Sirkan. Samu looked down at Kim. "You kicked me," Samu spoke almost like a child in Chinese. "Sorry, big man. Did not know who you were." "Samu," Jade yelled from across the room. "Let us go, please." Samu looked towards Jade. "You were always nice to me," the huge man boy said. He looked down at Kim. "You weren't. You go to Sirkan." The man boy picked her up in her arms, moved towards the oversized cage. Samu spoke to Sirkan in Mandarin as he suspended Kim by holding her wrists in his massive hand, as effective as a mental clap. as a mental clamp. Nice little cat. Samu has another playmate for you. He began to slide open the bolt to the cage door with his free hand. Kim exploded into action. Samu had forgotten how painful her kicks were until Kim planted both feet together into his face. He howled in pain from a broken nose and dropped Kim. The special agent hit the ground as sounds of a full-grown firefight echoed through the basement. She spun to meet the attack of the man-boy. He was now holding his broken nose. "You hurt my nose!" He looked up, screamed, and charged. Kim managed to evade his grasping meat-hooked hands, kicked at his legs. Samu stumbled into the cage, turned around fast for someone of his bulk, and charged again. Kim drove her right foot into his groin as hard as she could. Samu's eyes bugged out, and he dropped to his knees as Kim scrambled backward. Samu began to sob. Kim saw a chance and took it. She dashed to AJ and Jade's sides. Kim bent over and retrieved a small, slim piece of metal from her sock. "What's that?" AJ asked. "Razor blade. T-Rex taught me." She began to saw at AJ's bindings, managed to free her brother's hands. He handed the razor blade to him. "Cut your legs loose, then Jade." Kim spun around, ran past to the table on the shadow's edge. Bingo! The Howdah pistol was still there. AJ had not gotten a shot off, which told her the minions had used John's copy of her keys to get in. Stupid. And surprised him and Jade. Huge hands grabbed her from the rear, lifted her up like a rag doll. "You hurt me!" Blood flowed down Samu's face. Kim tried to bring the large double-barreled pistol to bear. There was a roar, and something bigger than even Samu slammed into him, sent Kim flying across the room. She managed to use a martial art break, fall, and roll, staggered to her feet, the Howdah pistol still in her hand. A scream came from the shadows, was cut off. Then she heard horrible and loud crunching sounds. Sir Colin was loose. "Oh God, oh God, oh God," she repeated to herself. She tried to move as quick and quiet as she could to AJ and Jade. AJ was slashing Jade's binding as fast as he could. Kim whispered, "Hurry," but quiet. Then turned toward where Sir Khan had gone. The Howdah pistol shook in her hands. "But are you big enough for this massive beast of a saber-toothed cat?" Then she heard a loud and familiar voice. "Raptor, T-Rex is here." She smiled, blinked back tears. Dan Krieg's lovable fool came along like some old Western hero, which could get them both killed. More shooting, and Kim dared not cry out for fear of attracting Sir Khan's attention. She motioned to the now freed and AG to follow her as she tried to get her bearings in the dark basement. Jade pointed a direction. "There, Kim, there's a small staircase up to the Wang's private office." "Okay, quiet now. Sir Khan is in hunting mode." "He is more," Jade had whispered. "He is as smart as you and I." Kim looked at her. "Made that way?" she asked. Jade nodded her head and spoke, "Yes." "That's great," whispered AJ. "Come on," said Kim. "Time to leave." The three made their way through the dim light, hearing cursing and the cries of pain from the other side of the hidden basement. Then more shots and the firefight began anew. Bullets zipped overhead, ricocheted nearby. Kim could not tell who was who in the darkness. At least the shooting meant the T-Rex was still alive. They all crouched as low as possible as they tried not to be shot. In the dim light, a figure approached. Kim brought up the pistol, aimed it at the possible threat. Then a voice broke the silence. "Raptor?" It was Rex. Kim tried not to laugh for joy. "T-Rex, you old fool," she whispered. "I didn't know you would come along when I texted." "Had to," he answered. "It would have taken me hours to get the bureaucracy moving. There was no time. Plus, I thought you'd wait for me." Kim looked at Rex's rifle. "That is not government issue." FNFAL 308 battle rifle, ex-Indian. Your people used them. The senior agent replied. Kim pointed to the small stairway to John Wayne's office. There, exit the upstairs. Got it, move, T-Rex ordered. Bullets whizzed by at the same time as there were loud and close gunshots and muzzle flashes. T-Rex stumbled into Kim, tried to remain standing. The female agent shoved him towards AJ, bought the Howdah Tiger pistol up two-handed and fired a barrel at the attacker. There was a loud report, bright muzzle flashes of black powder weapons sent a heavy load of buckshot fanning out into the basement. Kim was greeted with screams of pain as some of the buckshot found targets. She grabbed the arm of T-Rex, tried to pull him along. The older agent pushed her away. I'm okay. Rounds hit my tactical body armor, bruised only. Kim yelled at AJ and Jay. There was no reason to be quiet now. Move! The two young people did not have to be told twice. They dashed to the stairway, followed by Kim and T-Rex. AJ paused at the bottom of the stairs. Kim, up. This is my job, not yours, little brother. T-Rex shoved a pistol at her brother as he spoke. Glock 26, point and shoot. Got it. You get my sister. My partner's getting out with me. Move, T-Rex ordered. AJ looked at Kim, then began clambering up the narrow stairs with Jay. T-Rex swapped magazines in his rifle, then grabbed at another pocket in his tactical vest. Here, my SIG. A loud report and a heavy slug struck T-Rex. He went down. Kim screamed in anger, fired the remaining barrel of the Howdah pistol at the threat. Again, a loud scream of pain as a buckshot hit a minion. Kim crouched next to her partner. Rex, T-Rex, say something. Vest did not stop that one, he grunted out. Must be an AP round. Shit. He began to slump a little. Kim dropped the empty pistol, grabbed the 6 Sauer T-Rex had been trying to hand her. Stop right there, Kim. The words were in Mandarin. It was John Wayne. Kim slowly turned her head to see him in the dim light. Take your hand off the pistol, my love. I still don't want to shoot you. You expect me to let you kill my partner? My friend? Kim asked in Mandarin. John took a step closer. He had a chrome-plated Tokarev pistol pointed at him. I can help save him. I will use him as collateral for your continued silence. Or he can die. Your choice. Kim weighed the chances, spinning around and shooting him with the 6 Sauer. You know, John, someone must have heard all the shooting, Kim suggested. John Wayne smiled as he spoke. Not really. The basement is soundproof. I did that for my special occasions. Like when you have a large tiger beast prowling around. That, and dealing with the problems of the human nature. Now, hand over the pistol. Or I will shoot T-Rex also. Again, your choice. Kim slowly stood, looked directly into John's eyes. Why not just shoot me? No choices, Kim asked. Because, you silly fool, I do love you, John announced. That is not a lie. A weakness, but not a lie. Kim saw in John's eyes and face that it was true. Yet she knew that even the most potent love could not change reality that John was a force for evil. Kim could never live with that. Then you have a problem, John Wayne, president of the Seattle Asian Business Association. The special agent responded, for I must arrest you for all your crimes. That is my job, my calling, my honor. John began to curse. Damn you, you'd have had it all, power, money, a family. No, John, Kim stated, not based on lies and death. Even in the dim light, Kim could see John's face was flushed and screwed up with anger as he cried out. Just too damn smart for your own good. Now I must do this, for I answered to others in China, where my family still lives. Kim stood tall, straight. A calmness came over her as she knew her fate was near. But at least AJ and Jade had fled. they would tell the true story. Goodbye then, John. John sputtered something unintelligible. T-Rex picked that moment to start speaking from the basement floor. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? Surprised, both Kim and John Wayne looked at him. What are you? John began. Then Kim noticed T-Rex was looking past her and John into the basement. Two large eyes shone among the darkness. She gasped. John Wayne realized something was behind him. With widened eyes, he tried to turn around. A colossal shape sprang from the darkness, sending his pistol spinning towards Kim. The form drove him into the darkness, where he screamed. Once. Kim heard a loud crunching and snapping sound. Then silence. Kim unfroze herself, reached for the chrome Tokarov near her feet. And then she heard that cough. Slowly, Kim straightened up and stared into the eyes of death. Sarkhan, she whispered at the creature whose face was mere inches from her. She closed her eyes, waited for the inevitable permanent blackness.
That was quite nice. It gets your blood up, doesn't it? Now, I would like to read a little piece that I think you will enjoy.
This is The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous, I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to tell. First, the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay on his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well within the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, He would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily, steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed and cried out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I have done night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or grief. Oh, no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up in my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I said I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chucked at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since that first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor," or "It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain. All in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he never saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from the crevice and upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon that damned spot. And now, have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now I say, there came to my ears low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried to steadily, how steadily, I could maintain the ray upon his eye. Meantime the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder. I say louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now at the dead hour of night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still, but the beating grew louder, louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done, but for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. Yes, the old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there for many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took to conceal the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. Ha ha! When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentlemen welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted familiar things. But ere long I felt myself getting pale and wishing them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat, and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued to become more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness until at length I found that the noise was not in my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observation of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over and all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew they were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now again, hark, louder, louder, louder. Villains, I shrieked. Dissemble no more, I admit the deed. Tear up the planks, here, here. It is the beating of his hideous heart.
Well, I guess this ends the Halloween episode of Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers Author Showcase.
This wraps up our 5th Halloween show. Well, not wrapped up like a mummy, nor in the coronavirus. Completed as we always do, thanks to excellent support from the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television staff and crew. For without their help, this production would not exist. You can watch our broadcasts on Wave Cable Channel 3 and Comcast Channel 12 at 6 p.m. every Saturday and at 9 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. The Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers exists to help all authors and creative sorts to present their works to the Pacific Northwest population. We meet twice a month on the first and third Wednesdays at Spiro's Pizza on Kitsap Way in West Bremerton, when we are not limited by the coronavirus. If you are striving to get your creative work out to your community, stop by. After Halloween, I promise, I won't be late, and Mark will not slash. Watch for updates on Facebook and the Meetup.
Blue Forge Group, a nonprofit organization, also helps with our creative endeavors. Through the subsidiary Blue Forge Films, their staff ensures our shows are posted on YouTube and other visual media. Check www.tiny.cc/claw for a listing of Claw shows.
To all the Big Cat audiences, please do have a productive and a pleasant month.
And remember, trick or treat, smelly feet. Give us something good to eat or get grilled. That is, if you can trick or treat safely with social distancing. I assume masks are all the rage on All Hallows Eve anyway.
Remember, we are returning to normal, well, as normal as we can get, and we are beating this virus. To paraphrase the $6 million man, we have the science, the know-how, and the technology. You have a pleasant, macabre day today, and a ghoulish tomorrow. This is Claw, signing off.